And now, the general weather around Alaska. Welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan, coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Sunday, November 5th, 2023. And if you'd like additional weather information, including what we provide in this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It will bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left and tabs for the various territories. You point and click anywhere on this map and it'll pull up a local forecast with any relevant watches, warnings, or advisories. Looking at the weather map this Sunday afternoon, not a whole lot going on across the continental United States, which is a bit unusual for this time of year. Usually we have one big weather system affecting one side of the CONUS or somewhere in the middle. And we just have a couple of, we have a air quality alert, western North Carolina, a dense fog advisory, southwest Louisiana, red flag warning for fire weather conditions near and south of Pueblo, Colorado, and then a scattering of wind advisories in parts of the northern Rockies and west. A winter weather advisory for relatively light accumulations of snow near Lake Tahoe by their standards, because they can see certainly really big storms. For us, we did pick up a notable snowfall for South Central very late last night through the day this Sunday. Anchorage area seeing anywhere from 2 to as much as 5-6 inches of snow, especially on the east side of town up along the East Hills. That snow will be diminishing as we go through this evening. And then areas of the central interior around the middle Yukon Valley also seeing some snow that'll be in the process of diminishing early tonight. But blowing snow and freezing spray will continue along areas of the Arctic coast, not just tonight, but into the day on Monday and early Tuesday as brisk east-northeast winds continue to gust in the 35 to just over 40-mile-an-hour range. And as expected, we did have a couple of solar disturbance arrive very late last night and early this morning, triggering a strong G3 class geomagnetic storm, and it triggered auroras that were visible into areas of the central U.S. And here in Alaska, many places we were just clouded out. But the thing really got going this morning. I'll show you some imagery of that in a moment. But that storm and the aurora display overall looks like it's in the process of subsiding now. So I don't know, our chances tonight, not as good. Midweek storm could impact the Gulf Coast, south central areas in the Panhandle with wind and heavier precipitation that could include cold coastal rains, but areas inland and in the mountains, some heavier snow or icy mix of precipitation. So we want to stay tuned to later forecasts as we get into Tuesday night and especially Wednesday and Thursday. So looking at a couple of the FAA webcams this Sunday afternoon, we're looking at Dead Horse there along the central north slope, Arctic coast, blowing snow, 18 degrees. As I mentioned, winds have gusted at times up around and just over 40 miles an hour along that area. And in Anchorage, still some light snow and fog, but in the process of winding down. The bulk of the snow has fallen, and we should be diminishing here as we go through the late afternoon and early evening. Here's a quick check, too, with the stronger northwesterly winds coming around a low that's just sitting here in the northwestern Gulf. It's created some resuspended volcanic ash from Katmai that's going to be blowing across Shelikof Strait into areas of Kodiak Island tonight into early Monday morning. So mainly a hazard to aviation, but also could affect people with respiratory issues, as that kind of fine dust is not good to breathe in. Looking at what advisories or warnings and things that we still have in effect, we have along areas of the central Yukon, Galena South till at least 6 p.m. this Sunday, a winter storm warning for as much as 4 to 8 inches of snow. Have not had any official reports yet come out of there, but that snow should be winding down. And then along the Arctic coast, we have a strong pressure gradient here into the north slope. It's out of the east-northeast. And wind gusts over 30 and even 40 miles an hour, causing blowing snow and areas of heavier freezing spray where there's open water along the coast. So here is how we can kind of see the arrival of the solar disturbance. There was a couple of them. I think one of them arrived late last night, and then really things ramped up this morning around 9 a.m. is when we had a peak at a planetary K index of 7, which indicates a strong geomagnetic storm. And this is the corresponding aurora oval, an area where you'd likely see the aurora. And notice that's Russia, Siberia, into northern Europe, and the Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, into Iceland, would have had a very good display with this kind of configuration. Unfortunately, it's just a matter of timing where you on the Earth and how the Earth is rotating in its position of this. So by the time we rotate back into our night, it's probably going to be largely done. And just a last reminder, if you forgot to set your clock back because of a time change that happened late Saturday night before you went to bed or when you got up this Sunday morning. So make that change if you haven't done so, if you didn't notice something was off. And it's also a good time to check any batteries, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, any type of devices that should have frequent battery update. So looking at the satellite imagery, this afternoon, we have a couple of weather systems of note. We have the low pressure here in the Gulf. It was enough to pull some moisture back toward Anchorage and bring some notable snowfall in south central parts of the state. We have a low here over the central Bering that's going to work its way east-southeastward. And then we have a high pressure that's way up in the Arctic Ocean, and that's creating a stronger pressure gradient, especially along the North Slope and Arctic coast, where those east-northeast winds could gust up around and just over 40 miles an hour at times, causing that blowing and drifting snow, as well as heavier freezing spray in any of the areas that have open water up there. So here's one low there up against the east side of the Kenai Peninsula. Here's the other low that rode up along the outer coast of the Panhandle. The two of these are going to kind of combine for Monday. This low out here in the western Bering continues to work its way eastward along this frontal boundary as that whole thing kind of works east-southeastward. There's going to be a secondary piece of energy coming down along the Aleutian chain tomorrow, and the two of these will reemerge in the North Pacific on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula and generate area of low pressure that's going to create more active weather for the Gulf and South Central and the Panhandle as we get into Wednesday and Thursday of next week. So here is that area of low pressure later tonight and into Monday. The other low back here in through the central Bering works its way a little further east. The low here in the North Gulf weakens on Monday afternoon. Still pretty good breezes there along the Arctic coast, but here's the main piece of energy. It's really in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, and this is just the surface reflection. This system is going to drop southeastward and then redevelop here on Tuesday, and we have pretty good low taking shape there on the other side of the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. This is going to track northeastward up into the western Gulf, and with it, it's going to bring gale force winds, even some storm force wind gusts along areas of the Gulf Coast, especially as we go through late Tuesday night and then Wednesday and Thursday. And then heavier precipitation. Immediate coastal areas may just see a cold wind-driven rain, but it doesn't take much. You get up in elevation, it's a little colder. It's going to be heavier snow. And then as some of that moisture tries to pull back up into inner south central areas, it could be first in the form of snow and then mix with some freezing rain or rain. So it could produce some sloppy conditions, especially around the Anchorage Bowl. So keep that in mind if you have travel plans, or it could even impact air travel because of Anchorage being a major hub. So stay tuned to later forecast here for midweek, as I'm sure there'll be potentially various advisories or warnings with that system. So low temperatures Monday morning will generally be in the 30s across the Panhandle, except the outer areas, Sitka down toward Craig and Ketchikan, lower 40s. Below freezing in the 20s, Anchorage Bowl up to Talkeetna, 16 Glen Allen. Temperatures Monday afternoon will be right around or just above freezing in Anchorage, a little above freezing, 35 there at Seward and Valdez, 45 down toward Klawak and Craig, and generally in the low mid-40s throughout the Panhandle. On Tuesday morning, lows similarly below freezing here across south central interior and the Kenai Peninsula, 15 at Glen Allen, but generally around or just above freezing in the Panhandle, with 40s coming back Tuesday afternoon there. Back to the west, still near freezing around Anchorage and cooler as you go further up the Susitna Valley. Lows Monday morning will be in the single digits, near zero here in the like Anatuvik Pass, and those places will have the coldest readings. Single digits though across areas of the middle Yukon Valley, and then generally teens elsewhere. High temperatures Monday afternoon, lower 20s along the Arctic coast, still generally teens to maybe near 20 in the Yukon Valley, lower 20s along the Seward coastline, and then low temperatures Tuesday morning across much of the central and northern parts of the state, single digits above zero and teens. and high temperatures Tuesday afternoon. Generally, we're looking at mid-teens to lower 20s, maybe a few spots mid-20s. For the southwest interior, Monday morning, just on the other side of the Alaska Range, McGrath down around 8 above, 16 Dillingham, 19 Bethel. And as we trail out here along the eastern Aleutians, lower 40s at Dutch Harbor. And then temperatures Monday afternoon, definitely colder here through the upper Kuskokwim Basin and as you go up the Yukon River. But areas at least from around Chinook southwest, which should be in the low mid 40s for highs. Tuesday morning lows, again, single digits just on the other side of the Alaska Range toward McGrath, and teens elsewhere across the southwest interior. Coastal areas generally in the mid-20s or so. And then along areas of the Panhandle, or I should say the Alaska Range, we'll see lows near 40 and then high temperatures Tuesday afternoon. Generally, you have to get out along the areas of False Pass, Cold Bay, out through Dutch Harbor toward Adak. We should reach at least 42 or 43 for a high. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for November 11th through the 15th as we push into mid-month is indicating temperatures should average above normal, especially northern and northeastern parts of the mainland and areas of the Panhandle. But at this time of year, above normal temperatures just mean potentially more moisture, quite frankly, especially if you get southwest flow coming in up out of the North Pacific or the Bering. And looking at the precipitation outlook indicates overall statewide temperature or precipitation should average a bit above normal with the greatest potential for a little more than that, maybe above normal precipitation here in the southwest, centered on the lower middle Yukon Valley there to the northeast of Bethel. Just one thing to keep in mind, the overall pattern looks like we are going to see systems either lifting out of the North Pacific or coming in across the Bering, and either way, it's going to tap into moisture. And now that we are getting deeper into the fall and early winter and we have colder air in place, it doesn't take much to get wintry precipitation or some mix, especially as that tries to come farther into the inland locations. So I'm sure we'll see some other systems that'll be impactful here as we head toward mid-month.